Imagine waking up one day to find that the price of your favorite smartphone has skyrocketed, your groceries cost more, and businesses across the world are scrambling for survival. Sounds like a dystopian nightmare, right? But this isn't science fiction. This is exactly what happened when the world's two biggest economies, the United States and China, went head-to-head in a brutal trade war. And trust me, this is only the beginning. For decades, the United States was the undisputed king of global trade. Its massive economy, financial dominance, and the all-powerful US dollar made it the center of the world's financial system. When America imposed tariffs or trade restrictions, other countries had no choice but to comply. But times have changed. The rise of China has disrupted this balance, turning what was once a one-sided economic game into a high-stakes battle for global supremacy. So how did we get here? What sparked this economic war, and who is really winning? More importantly, what does this mean for you, your job, and your future? Stay with me because the truth behind this trade war is more shocking than you think. It all officially started in 2018, when former US President Donald Trump declared that China had been playing dirty in global trade. His administration accused China of unfair trade practices, things like stealing intellectual property, forcing American companies to hand over their technology, and using massive government subsidies to dominate industries. The US, believing it had the upper hand, imposed sweeping tariffs on Chinese goods, hoping to cripple China's economy and bring jobs back to America. The strategy seemed simple: tax Chinese imports, make them more expensive, and force American companies to start producing domestically. Sounds like a good plan, right? Well, not quite. Because China wasn't about to take this lying down. China struck back, imposing tariffs on American goods, targeting key industries that hit the US where it hurt the most. One of the biggest victims: American farmers. China had been one of the largest buyers of US agricultural products, but when tariffs hit, billions of dollars worth of US exports were suddenly blocked. Farmers across America felt the sting as their businesses collapsed overnight. But wait, this is where it gets really interesting. While many believed that China's economy was heavily dependent on the US, something unexpected happened. Instead of suffering under pressure, China adapted. It strengthened trade relationships with other countries, shifted its supply chains, and ramped up domestic production. Suddenly, the world wasn't just looking to America for trade, it was looking to China. And this is where the balance of power started shifting in a way that the US hadn't anticipated. You see, in the past, when America imposed trade restrictions, the targeted country had no choice but to submit. But China was different. It had spent decades building its own economic empire. It had its own massive manufacturing base, strong trading partnerships with Europe, Africa, and Latin America, and, most importantly, it had the ability to fight back. The trade war quickly turned into a tit-for-tat conflict, with each country imposing new tariffs, restrictions, and countermeasures. But the consequences weren't just limited to the US and China. This economic battle sent shockwaves across the globe. Companies that relied on parts from both nations suddenly found themselves trapped in a web of rising costs and supply chain nightmares. Investors panicked, markets fluctuated, and suddenly, the world realized something crucial: global trade wasn't as simple as just cutting off one country and moving production elsewhere. Take the automotive industry, for example. The US had been a dominant player in car manufacturing for years, but China had been catching up fast. And when tariffs hit, the industry took a major blow. American automakers, already struggling with rising material costs, suddenly found it harder to sell their vehicles in China, thanks to a 25% tax slapped onto American-made cars. But here's where China played its smartest move. Instead of just retaliating, it focused on something else: innovation. China doubled down on electric vehicles, investing billions into making its own car industry world-class. Companies like BYD and NIO started developing EVs that could compete with, and even surpass, American brands like Tesla. And while the US was busy fighting trade wars, China was busy becoming the global leader in green technology. This brings us to a critical question: was the US strategy backfiring? The goal was to weaken China's economy and bring jobs back to America. But instead, China adapted, and American companies struggled. Businesses relying on Chinese components saw costs skyrocket, consumers faced higher prices, and industries from agriculture to technology were caught in the crossfire. And it didn't stop there. The US also imposed tariffs on steel and aluminum, hoping to protect American steel workers. But guess what? American manufacturers that relied on steel, like car companies, construction firms, and appliance makers, now had to pay more for materials. The result? Higher prices, less competitiveness, and, ironically, some businesses having to move production outside of the US just to stay afloat. So who's really winning this war? Well, that depends on how you look at it. On one hand, China has shown the world that it's not just a manufacturing hub, it's a technological powerhouse. It's leading in areas like artificial intelligence, semiconductors, and renewable energy. It has also been expanding its global influence through projects like the Belt and Road Initiative, strengthening economic ties with dozens of countries while the US remains locked in trade disputes. On the other hand, the US is still a dominant force in global finance, military power, and innovation. But here's the catch. While it's been focused on fighting China with tariffs and restrictions, it may have been ignoring the bigger picture. Other countries are now seeing China as a more reliable trading partner. While the US is trying to decouple from China, the rest of the world is moving closer to it. And that's the real danger for America. By isolating itself in trade wars, it risks losing influence while China continues expanding its economic reach. So what happens next? Will the US double down on its strategy, or will it find a new way to compete in this shifting global economy? Will China continue to rise, or will internal challenges slow its momentum? One thing is for sure, the trade war is far from over. In fact, it's only getting started. And the biggest question of all, how will this affect you? Will prices keep rising? Will jobs be lost or gained? Will the world economy suffer long-term consequences from this economic battle? The answers to these questions are unfolding right now. And if history has taught us anything, it's that in a battle of giants, the whole world feels the impact. What do you think? Has the US made the right move, or is China outplaying America in the global economic game? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the biggest issues shaping our world today.